out to be completely unreliable assholes.
Hello, Tim.
Hello, Ryan.
Hello.
Hello. Let me chew on this pickle here.
What is that a reference to, Tim?
Oh, I don't know.
The movie we just watched?
Shivers.
Not of the being cold variety, we might add. But that's right.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about Shivers today on Dismembering Horror, the podcast show you are currently listening to. The podcast show, in fact, where myself, Ryan McDuffie, and
myself, Tim Aslin.
We dismember a horror film every week.
We do.
And that means we talk about what worked for us, what did not work for us, and anything that we found interesting or noteworthy about a horror film that we've been wanting to see, that we're hoping is really good, that we're hoping to get something out of it, that we're hoping, even if it wasn't so good, it's at least worth talking about. But boy, we love it when we love it, too. Those are fun episodes. Those are fun films.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we've just been getting through them. We're at episode 70. This is episode 70.
Oh, wow.
Everyone.
Hey.
Closing in
yeah,
on...
I remember when we were doing episode 69.
Of course. But we're closing in slowly but surely on our first triple-digit episode.
Wow, that's true. When will that be?
I don't have it mapped up
30
that far
weeks
ahead.
from now. Oh my God, whatever that is. More than half a year from now, so.
Yeah, because we know it's like the 52...
7-8 months or something.
Yeah.
Or 7 months, maybe. I don't know. I'm not going to do math right now.
Be here before we know it, I'm sure, like most things.
Yep.
And yes, we mentioned we're here today to talk about Shivers, the first Cronenberg feature film funded by Canadian government tax money.
Boy, were they upset.
Yeah. So I brought a special guest here today, Tim, since we're talking about parasites.
Oh, yeah?
I brought a...
Gross.
I brought a friend with me. It was once
Oh my
alive.
God, put that tapeworm back in your butt.
It was once alive, but is now dead.
Ew, wait, what is this for real? Whoa, what the fuck? I don't want to touch that. What the fuck is it?
It's a parasite. It
looks like an eel.
It is. It's a lamprey.
Yeah.
Have you heard of those?
I mean, I've heard of it, but I don't know what they are.
Can you describe for our viewers
is
exactly?
Is that in the movie?
Well,
is that what that thing in the tank is?
No, that was just an actual snake, water snake thing.
Okay. That is fucking disgusting.
But I thought it was apt to point out how the parasites in Shivers, they aren't that far from what actual things look like as far as that
was
little
that
mouth.
in a person?
I don't know. These don't actually go in people.
Oh, they don't? Okay. Because that'd be real fucking gross.
Can you describe to our audience what exactly you're looking at, Tim?
It sort of looks like a mummified, maybe 18-inch long, gray-brown snake, kinda. It like flattens out at the tail. And the mouth is literally out of Alien. It's so gross. It's like got a sucker mouth, sort of flat, round sucker mouth with like a square, like it's got like, it looks kind of like a butthole, to be honest.
Filled with sharp teeth.
And then there's sharp teeth in the hole part. That's fucking disgusting.
You don't want to hold it yet?
I do not want to touch it. Don't put it on my...
This is for us to keep us company today, Tim.
Oh, God. Why do you have that?
Just in case.
That is so gross and alien. Freaky. What the fuck? What do they do?
They're like, I think just kind of bottom dwellers.
In the water?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're deep ocean creatures that just suck off of other things.
Like whales and shit? Like, know. What do they fucking go after?
I don't know. We should look up lampreys more.
Sharks? Okay. Wow. That's... First of all, that's gross. Second of all, it's so weird that you have that. But third of all, seems kind of like apropos to you.
I mean, I knew this day would come. Where we'd be talking about...
Where did you get this?
From my science class in like sophomore year of high school where they were just giving everything away in the room. My friend took away like a chicken skeleton.
I mean, this definitely sounds like the setup for a horror film where it's like, oh yeah, we're closing down the school. Hey kids, everybody just take a jar from the science room. And then they like open a fucking back cabinet and like some kid goes, whoa, what's this one? It's still moving. Let me take that and not tell anybody. And then they take it home and it fucking like, you know, infests their town or whatever.
And it was just me and my other weird friends taking them up on the offer, of course. But there you go. Wow. So we aren't alone today, and I thought it'd be fun to have a real life parasite sitting with us as we talk. We like to, like, even if we try to keep this in fiction, which it very much is, Shivers, it's very much rooted in reality.
Hell yeah.
Heck yeah. Hell yeah. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, I wanted to do that sooner rather than later. We have our trailer for this film to watch.
Can we clean up something about that you were told about the lighthouse?
That I was told about the lighthouse?
Yeah, a clarification.
Uh-huh.
Remember you said that your friend clarified what the final image is for us?
Oh, yeah.
So we should say that because we didn't really know what it was.
Sure.
It was, it's Prometheus's death. It's a reference to the final image of the lighthouse is a reference to Prometheus's death, where he is, you know, prone on rocks, getting his liver or his innards being plucked out by eagles, I think, for eternity.
Right. And it's whose punishment for giving humans fire was to be bound to a rock and have his liver pecked out and eaten by an eagle every day for eternity. Yeah,
so it's sort of like we were sort of knocking on that door without knowing exactly what it was.
Yeah. But I mean, cool as far as that meaning of the, you know, fire being sort of something
enlightenment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much in that line of the monolith.
Right.
Human knowledge.
Yep. So that was cool to have. Who was your friend who cleared that up?
My
for us?
friend Jesse.
Hey Jesse.
His
good job. You knew it.
Listener of the show.
Did I meet Jesse?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
I remember.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Jesse. It's time to get into some Cronenberg.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, alternately titled.
Oh, yeah. It has like 3, doesn't it?
They Came From Within. Here's the trailer for what we know as Shivers.
If you think you're not afraid of the dark, if you think you have a strong stomach, if you feel nothing can shock you, if you say you don't scare easily, if you believe you've seen everything, then prepare yourself for a motion picture that takes you beyond fear, beyond your wildest nightmares, and brings you face to face with terror, beyond the power of priest or science to exercise. What are they? Raging demons from another world? Bloodthirsty creatures that must be killed? Or incarnations of absolute evil? They possess men, women, and children, and drive them to acts of unbelievable horror.
Wow. I had forgotten, but early on in the movie, I thought pretty immediately, I was like, oh shit, I think this is what, oh God, what's his fucking name? The guy who did Slither.
Oh, yeah.
Why can't I
James Gunn?
Yeah, James Gunn. I was like, I bet this was, you know, a movie on his fucking list that he really liked.
Slither is one that we've gotten recommended to us for, or requested that we do for our show, which I haven't seen for a very long time.
I think I only saw it once quite a while ago too. Yeah. Anyway, so
but today is all about Shivers. There was the trailer for Shivers. So are they the Shivers?
I don't get the title, but
are we just scared?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
All right. First up, we got to rate this film, Tim. Per our rating system, would we tell ourselves to avoid it, stream it, rent it, or buy it?
Ooh, man. It's right on the cusp for me.
What would it be, Tim?
It's man. It's a, you know what? It's just a stream for me. Even though it is Cronenberg and everything, it just isn't like, there's not enough, like, I don't know. I wasn't hyped up enough.
Yeah, I feel you.
At the end of the day, I'm sort of like, it's cool, and it's cool to see his first feature, and like, in the context of his films, it's like interesting, but it's not great.
I know it's hard because I think it's like how we're doing this rating system. It's that exactly as you just described for me. However, I think that like if I'm telling myself, which is what this is, I think it just makes a rent it as far as what you said about being an early Cronenberg film. Like when I watch it from that perspective, it's just as like a film nerd, it's fun to sort of pick up on these elements and sort of see how they play out later and go, oh, this is like, I could picture this in a, what came to be known as a Cronenberg film.
Well, and then I think to myself also, like, would I ever pull this off the shelf and watch it again?
Yeah, I don't.
Not
that's the
really.
thing. That's when this was your selection, and honestly, when you picked it, I was kind of like, oh yeah, it's that one in the building. Yeah, I don't. Okay, well,
I mean, I
he
picked
wants
it
to see it
specifically because it's his first one, like kind of hoping for sort of gold.
No, I'd seen it and been like, okay, well, we'll talk about it, but I'm not necessarily excited to watch it again.
Yeah. Well, and also I would definitely rather watch Rabid, which is sort of in the same.
Yeah,
it's about I would say the same level. But I'd rather watch that than this.
I don't know. Okay, maybe
and The Brood I still haven't watched. Sorry.
I feel like I'm gonna bring it back and say stream it.
Okay. Double stream. Cross the streams.
Yeah. David, we love you.
So much.
Enough to stream this one.
Well,
what happened in Shivers?
It's a kind of cool, it's a cool little isolation setup, which I like. So there's a fancy residence building on an island in Montreal. Mm-hmm. And so they're isolated. That's cool. And so they're kind of trying to be self-sustaining. So they've got doctor's office and dentist office.
Everyone knows everyone.
An Olympic-sized pool.
Yep.
Everybody knows everybody to some degree. It's a little, incestuous community to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And people are kind of, we learn that there's a affliction, abdominal affliction that's kind of going around. Yes.
Well, it's... yes, I mean, it's more than that. I wouldn't call it an abdominal. That's one way to call it.
But they all kind of see it that way initially.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, they're all like, oh, yeah. Like remember the old dude who's, like, getting a physical and he's like, ow, my stomach hurts. He's like, yeah, I was hooking up with that other girl and she had some lumps in her stomach and I kind of thought it was sexy. And it's like...
Yeah.
You weren't freaked out?
So pretty simultaneously... With all that, though, we're getting the pickle scientist.
Yeah.
So who's explaining that it was his partner at the beginning. So right off the bat, too, we are getting something right off the bat, which is this man killing this young woman, like brutally
cutting her
open, and then like pouring acid in her.
Like in her stomach or abdomen, whatever.
Right? And then but the idea is introduced.
Pretty intense. And then he slits his own throat.
Right? Just can't take it. But then the idea is introduced pretty soon, which is the actual story going on of these were like intentionally invented parasitic creatures that were supposed to just sort of help make people like feel better or something, like just to a small degree by somehow like
like
making them less concerned, or
yeah, I mean, he made this sort of analogies like, what if you could have a parasite that basically like replaced your kidney?
yeah,
Like it can be, you know, we can make a parasite that's working for you.
yeah,
And like that parasitic relationship is actually beneficial to the host.
and if part of that benefit was like somehow tapping into an aspect of a more like unbridled side, it's much more exaggerated than as originally intended.
Right.
Where it's basically, once you got the parasite in you, not too far from, this makes a good compendium to The Stuff, which we just watched, as far as you turn into a crazed, orgiastic
Sure, yeah.
shell of yourself.
Right. You just, yeah. What did she say? It's all, everything's erotic.
Yeah. Everything's erotic.
And so ultimately the story kind of, we end up with the doctor who is like the resident doctor, being the last man standing, essentially. And everybody, it's real borderline. Like everybody kind of turns into almost a zombie. It's like they're a zombie, but they're not dead. They're just overcome with the urge to fuck and pass on the parasite.
Yes, precisely, Tim.
Yeah. Tagline.
What a world that would be.
And, you know, but it does have that kind of zombie vibe, like the horde of people.
Yeah, I'd say
slowly coming after you.
By the second half, it kind of is a zombie movie, and the
Yeah.
first half is, as Tim put it, a very rapey film. Which we'll get into.
It is rapey. It's not pleasing, that's for sure.
No. But first, we do have to talk about what worked. So,
yeah, let's do that.
All right, what worked?
What worked? What worked for you? What worked for you?
It worked like a charm, Smith.
What worked? What worked for you?
I'll tell you what worked. The actual parasite.
You like that guy? Not too far off from this.
It's basically a 4-inch or 5-inch version of your little lamprey.
Yeah.
But it's squishier.
Yep.
It's got sort of
It's turdy.
it's very turdy, but it gets wider at one sort of part
It's
of it.
like wider in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. It's gross.
And it's got its weird little suction mouth.
I remember before we've seen it in the movie, I was like, the one dude, sort of I guess kind of the main host guy. He's got the most of them in him.
Right.
And he's got he's got his very upset wife.
Janine.
Rightly so.
Nick and Janine's the couple.
Why won't you let me help you? She doesn't last long. So he is sort of barfing them out. And right before we see one for the first time, I was like, it needs to be like some gooey, fleshy, blobby little like turd thing.
Yeah.
And then they show it, and it like is exactly
Yeah.
that. I was like, oh,
I
all
know.
right,
I'm like,
nailed it.
Tim, you must have seen this somehow before. You just intuit the Cronenbergness, what feels right.
Well, that's what I was channeling. I was just like, every Cronenberg movie I've ever seen, like, that's the thing. Like, it just, the kind of fleshy, gooey thing.
Yep.
Just that to me is Cronenberg. So, great.
And
He started off right at the top.
right.
That was what he was going for day one.
Yeah, and I could say a lot of what worked for me was his the aspects of his filmmaking that we see more defined or clear in later films, or they congeal in certain ways. But a big one for me was that that critique, the commentary on things, on class in this one is a big one, on kind of the I took a quote from an article, but this is a quote: the commodification of the sexual revolution. That idea is neat in there. But how it started off with all that right from the bat of this, the overview of the towers they're in, the luxury towers, which are called the Starliner Towers. And it's just
like it's a ship or something.
yeah.
Right.
And it's just in the form of this voiceover for a commercial. But
Yeah.
that was just so on point to me of just kind of like when it gets to the lines, there was one, sail through life in quiet and comfort, of just sort of presenting this ideal life, quote unquote ideal life of just comfort.
There are two aesthetics in that I love. There's a style of couch that they have, which is this in the 70s. There was this sort of phase of like quote unquote futuristic sort of furniture making, where it's like they're using plastics instead of wood, and everything's like white and no hard edges. It sort of feels space agey, or like what they thought of as space agey. I love that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And like they showed the couches, like, fuck yeah, I want that.
I like all that 70s
But
stuff.
then they cut to the oven, the stove, and it's like the jankiest piece of shit gas, like, or not even, it's an electric stove. It's just like, I was like, we had that stove. That's the shit stove from, Sears. So it's like,
I know, because it is so funny. It's like
we've evolved.
Right. But I mean, that is a disparity between the voice talking it up as the ultimate thing, and then what we actually see is kind of like,
or even at the time, what was considered luxurious.
Yeah.
An electric stove. Wow.
It struck me so much, like, too, that how atypical that intro was of the woman getting attacked, and as we said in the summary, like all that, like where it feels like you're getting the regular movie on everything else that is going on, but meanwhile there's just this nope, this is anything but normal, like brutal attack that just felt like out of place if it was a typical movie. But again, this was one of the elements that worked for me, where it's like, no, this is a Cronenberg thing, where it's just kind of, this is the jumping off point to be already here, and then have it all be an exploration from this point on versus having to wait for it.
Well, it definitely has a little bit of the Last House, the original Last House on the left, kind of like blurring the line of like almost feeling like a documentary, like almost feeling like somebody just had a camera.
Yeah, no, very that like Last House, Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah. I really like that aesthetic and like the weirdness of it, because it is, I don't know, it's a bit shocking, for purposefully shocking, obviously, to go from this, like, because we're seeing essentially the interview of these two people coming in to check out a potential, condo or whatever.
The happy couple.
And there's eeriness in that, but it still feels like it could be a commercial. Mm-hmm. And then you're cutting to this very violent, like in your face fucking fight.
Yeah.
That is like, whoa, what the fuck? What is happening? But I like that. It's jarring in like a good way.
Yeah.
And like putting the girl in a schoolgirl's outfit is unpleasant, because it's like, she's obviously not 15. Like she's not a schoolgirl. So it's like, it's just blurring this line of like, what the fuck is going on?
Was it just like her like a style people dress then?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Because my impression was, and they say this at some point, that the doctor who kills her and then kills himself, who's been doing all this, has known her for a long time and like met her when she was 12. So there definitely is a like, ooh, this is fucked up and like gross and wildly inappropriate. But it seems as though a fair amount of time has passed. So maybe, I mean, if she was 12, maybe she was. Well, no, here's the other thing. She's banging a bunch of people in the building.
Yeah.
So she fucking better not be 16.
Right.
Like 8 dudes have banged her at least.
Where you go with what worked?
What I'm going with is that the blurriness of her character actually helps to like set this tone of like,
Right.
Ooh,
It's just that
I'm like uncomfortable,
Right.
and what is happening, and like
That's exactly
it's yucky.
it, yeah.
And that's good. That's actually really smart, intentional or not, but it's really smart to make it feel yucky in these sort of other contexts.
Yeah.
That's not just the context of like, oh, there's a parasite running around like infecting people.
that for me is exactly what it is that like worked for me in that Cronenberg sense, is the part that goes, what is even happening?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you think you can sort of figure out what you're looking at, but just by, you're right, like how she's dressed and specifically how the guy is attacking her, of like, then he pours acid, then slits his own throat. It's just enough to be like, okay, I don't know what this is supposed to be, and I'm feeling at the hands of the filmmaker, you know?
And it's not baseless. That's the thing that I like too, is where you kind of know, or maybe we know because we know Cronenberg is not going to kind of let us down ultimately in the understanding or the reasons for this. But in the moment, you're like, this is a weird lot. Like, fuck, I don't know. Like, it makes me feel not good. But I'm confident that it'll make sense.
Right.
At least on some level.
I think that's a good way to describe Cronenberg as a whole. And any of my other favorite like things that I loved about this movie, you could kind of describe the same way. My all-time, like my favorite thing in this Tim film. You have like your mind's going to a few guesses already.
Yeah.
I don't think you're gonna guess it,
Probably not.
but I want to know what you're thinking.
I mean, one jumped out at me. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I quite love a particular moment.
It's really how like it gets to the when they're all in zombie mode at the way end, and it's a group of them and they're yelling. That's what I love, is what they're yelling is. I hadn't heard anything like it before as far as group zombie yells, where it's this kind of, it's an in-between of Walla and kind of agitatedness, where it's like this, like they're just kind of exuding nonsense, but there is something so
But are they actually
unsettling
saying
about it.
words? I feel like they are.
They
but
might
maybe not.
be, is the thing, but at the same time, it's also just kind of, I don't know, like yells, but not like angry or anything. It's something about it really, I don't know, it really got to me as far as like, oh, this is like parasites talking through humans.
Yeah. That's a cool idea.
It was just one of those little things where it's like you see the director's choices just making such a difference, where it's like there was like he had to make a decision for how they sound when they're all yelling together, and it's unlike anything I'd really heard as far as what you might expect given that situation or trope.
I mean, I like how, you know, if you were just doing zombies, it's sort of, the zombies are, you know, they're kind of mindless, and they're just compelled to feed, right? That's sort of the zombies zone. And having this different context for their quote unquote like compulsion, having that be like sexual, like desire, I guess, or I guess that's sort of what is driving them.
Yeah.
Creates a cool opportunity for what you're talking about. Like, what is the sound that they make? And like, that in and of itself too it's such a creepy kind of blurring of things, where it's like we're programmed to kind of be like, the sounds of like sexiness and like pleasure are not that far away from the sounds of like moans, so to speak. There's a very fine line between a horror moan and a pleasure moan.
You just say the word moaning and it's like, well, that can be two very different things.
Right. And I feel like what you're describing really kind of hits this nice place in there where you're like, I don't really know what to feel about this. Like, if there's a bunch of like sexy women in a pool like coming after me, there's a part of you that goes, oh.
Yeah.
And then there's another part of you that goes, I don't know how to, like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. And I think that's, just in a broad sense, it's a cool thing to kind of look at, of like, the difference, I don't know how to describe this exactly, but the murkiness, I guess, between like pleasure and intimacy and, you know, what drives us at different points of like our sexual lives. And like, this is I'm kind of going down a rabbit hole a little bit, but like, I think often about that like where you're at in sort of mentally when it's like, am I just really like horny and want to have sex, or like in what I'm actually desiring is like closeness and intimacy, and like where are you on that spectrum at any given time, and how is it influencing your like decision making? You know, like I see lots of people just out and about, or talk to friends who are like, I should not have hooked up with that person, but I was drunk and I was horny. And it's like, yeah, or should you have, right? Like, what's the line, and why, like, morally speaking, or whatever the fuck. All that stuff is kind of in this movie, which I think is cool and weird. That context
of like doing that drunk and like losing your decision making when you're drunk. That's like it. Yeah, there's an aspect of that horror in here, as far as like when, like, yeah, you describe them in the swimming pool and they're all kind of coming at them. And there's that part of you that wonders, like, well, okay, if I get shivered, will I still be me? Like, am I still conscious to an extent? Like, where?
Yeah.
Like that whole like idea of losing yourself or not.
And then like
to what extent?
All of that, I think, in this movie is kind of couched in this like era of like sexual liberation too, which is just, I think it's an interesting thing to kind of explore. 'Cause like from one point of view, you could kind of say there's this commentary about like people viewing sexual liberation as dangerous or like evil. And I think there's a whole era, and that's probably still exists for some people, but there was a whole era of that fight over like, it's morally wrong to like be like, have more than one partner and any of that stuff. I feel like this movie is kind of pointing at that broadly to be like,
right.
I think some people would watch this and inappropriately identify it as a movie about like sex. And it's a little bit, to me, seems like it's more a movie pointing at the people who are pointing at it, thinking it's just about sex. It's like, it's satire on them for thinking sexual liberation is a bad thing.
Right.
At least that's sort of like my broader takeaway, was sort of like,
I mean, can you connect that to like how, like what I said earlier, like how it's about the commoditization of that, like the fact that all of that context is within this apartment building that's sort of trying to take that, maybe that more like standardized, okay, we're still the 1950s oriented, like, okay, well, even though that now that you've added the sexual revolution to the pot, how do we still do that under this, like, be your young couple and buy this, buy that, live here. This is your version of what's perfect.
Right. Yeah, all of that how did you say? Commoditization. All of that stuff feels like the trappings of a construct that's trying to retain structure, and say like, no, we got to fit into this box, literally the fucking building or your apartment, or like these, the cookie cutter idea could be sort of it's replacing a different cookie cutter from the 50s of like, here's your single family home and your nuclear family and your 2-car garage and your briefcase and fucking whatever. This is like the modern version of that, but it's still talking about or pointing at the same thing of like, here's the sort of automaton way of looking at your life, and you got to live it this way. And it's like, just so you know, underneath all of that bullshit is a bunch of people fucking.
Yeah.
And then like bad shit happens because of that, but it's not the sex that's the problem. It's the trying to control how we operate.
I think that's what made So I don't know, kind of the highlight for this film too was just Nick is the main guy who has like all of them inside of him, and we see all the stages play out. Who's like vomiting in the bathtub and all that. Yeah. But sort of the very first thing we see with him is that exact like contrast of where he's trying to appear a certain way as if he is okay and he's anything but. If you remember, like he freezes with this blood dripping down, this like little trickle of blood comes down his mouth, and he just freezes as if like he's breaking on the inside or something. Right. Something like that would cause that appropriate response from someone else. Let's get you to a hospital. But then when he goes, no, it's fine. I just need to like go home and have a good night's sleep and sleep it off kind of thing. Just that idea of like
ignoring this, issues in your life.
Ignoring the symptoms.
Yeah. I think that's really cool stuff. It's got some cool layers to it, and it's, pointing at broader, interesting themes and things that I think are interesting. And anytime you're breaking a status quo or like a construct that's been around for a while and like kicking it in the balls, I love that.
Right.
It's just fun to be like, no, fuck you, fuck this. This is something else.
We've gotten to a lot of that with the stuff too. See,
exactly.
Film. To keep going down Nick's plight, since that was sort of like where a lot of highlights
Nick,
were.
by the way, what a fucking interesting face this guy has. in a really good way.
Okay. Well, we'll get through his stuff then. Yeah, touch on that casting bit. So then next is that, when we see his, him looking at his stomach and like he sees the lumps coming out, but the way it's like, again, just in that way where it's twisted in that Cronenberg way of where his reaction's not quite you'd expect, but you just kind of are into. He goes like, come on, boy. Come on, fella.
Yeah, he's trying to like kind of get on board with it.
Or like
coax it in.
Yeah, coax it for something.
It's fucking weird.
And then we have that long take, that's sort of the far away shot of him going into the bathroom, and we see the open door through the hallway, and he's vomiting into the bathtub, and we see the aftermath.
Can I tell you a story about vomiting? In a not highlight moment of my life, I'm not proud of this. On my 25th birthday, I worked in New York at a bar, and as you're prone to do when you work in a bar and it's your birthday, everybody's giving you shots. And like, here's a shot. And I was drinking like fucking Jack Daniels or something. I think it was Jack. Gross. And so like I had a day shift, and I was like, I'll drink during the day shift and then I'll go home and that'll be that. Like that's my birthday. I'm not going to go out tonight because I'll be drinking all day. So I did that, and then the people who I got off work with were like, oh no, you can't go home. Like we have to go to another bar and drink more. So I did that and was out of control drunk. Like it was just so much alcohol. And like, I've never been a huge drinker. This was like, I probably drank a bottle of Jack Daniels at least. It was disgusting. And it was over the course of 14 hours or something like that. But still, I was destroyed. And I ended up getting kind of like picked up and like spilled into a cab by one of my friends. And I got home, and there was a little like sandwich shop underneath my building, or at the bottom floor. So I bought like a peppercorn turkey fucking sub, and just, I barely remember this, but I kind of remember drunkenly like messily eating it down in their little like deli area, and then going upstairs. And as I got, it was a railroad apartment, so I had to kind of go through the narrow hallway to my bedroom, past the bathroom. And the second I remember like peeling my clothes off as I walked. I was such a fucking mess. And I remember getting to my bed and like flopping down on it. And the second I was horizontal, I was like, no, this isn't going to work. And I popped back up and ran to the bathroom. And I was so drunk that I ended up, I missed the toilet like physically. Like I passed it and I fell over and I landed with my upper torso in the bathtub and my like legs out of the bathtub. So I'm like hanging over the edge of the bathtub.
So
And then I started throwing up.
So at
it was so
this
disgusting.
moment in the film, I should say, when we were watching it, and we see the guy bend over like next to the toilet into the bathtub.
Such a flashback for me.
No, Tim goes, "Why would you do that?"
That's not where you do it.
He's coming. Now we know you're coming from a very personal place.
Very personal. It was horrible.
Well, then right after that,
Oh, and to make just one the icing on the cake, so to speak, the peppercorn turkey that I had. You know, peppercorn turkey has like an orange coating on it, like whatever the fuck that is. Gross. I had just eaten this, so when I'm throwing up, all I'm throwing up is orange. It was so fucking gross. Now I will say, I had enough presence of mind to turn the shower on and rinse it out.
great for like your 4 roommates. You
No, it's too small apartment for that. It's just me and one other dude. But yeah, it was bad. It was
throwing up orange.
just gross.
Well,
Anyway, so anytime I see somebody throwing up in a movie, I'm always like, no, I hate throwing up. It's the worst.
Come on, fella.
Come on, you can do it.
Next was a part you got really excited about too, as far as Nick's sickness plight, was when he, after vomiting up in the bathtub, goes to vomit off the balcony onto 2 old women who one of them has a clear umbrella.
Yes.
And so he barfs up the parasite onto it.
I was so excited because it's like in an instant you just know what's coming.
Yeah. You're so excited. They're just, the 2 ladies walk in. Tim was just like, yes.
I think I said, here we go.
Yeah. That was great. And that's when we first see the little shiver.
That's right.
Is that one. And then my favorite, as far as the end of Nick's plight here, was once it finally comes out of his mouth. Remember, he's like convulsing and the girlfriend, fiance, whatever, is like looking at him across him. They're both on the bed. Mm-hmm. And it's just like this melting tongue creature just kind of plops out of his mouth. And it's just so perfect.
You know what I think it actually looks like? If you took, this is so gross, if you took somebody's anus out of them, just that section of your bowels.
It's just like a...
It's just... Because it has like a little like snouty sort of mouth thing. But then it like gets bigger and like it's ripply. Yeah. I feel like it's just a butt. It's just a... Don't show me that thing. I don't want to see it. It's so gross. Oh my God. I love Cronenberg.
So that whole, Nick's story, that was all great.
Yeah. Yeah, his wife, I kept thinking like his wife was going to kind of get it worse, like something really awful was going to happen to her, but it didn't really. She just kind of got infected and that was it.
And it was just in a horror movie way. We just had the scenes sprinkled throughout of like this person getting attacked, that person getting attacked. So we have the lady doing laundry and like that's kind of an extended one. That's fun. That my favorite, I think, is when the... I like it just when it gets more to the second half and it's like the neck beard guy gets attacked by the woman.
What was he? He's like a caterer or something.
The server? What do you call it? When it's... What's the word for that? When it's a hotel, but it's not...
Room service?
Yeah.
Sort of?
He's like that, but for this apartment instead of a hotel.
Okay, go on.
And then, too, when it's the older couple and it's like the one has the walker and so they're like trying to crush it with a walker and it's just like so squishy and that was fun.
Yeah.
What
else should we have?
Well, I still something on how they were as quote unquote zombies at the end. There's a lot that just sort of, there's a lot of questions that we sort of don't take for granted or don't think about as far as when you're thinking of how do I do a zombie? Like how much are they thinking about certain things? Like, in a lot of them, Dawn of the Dead and a lot like it, it's like, oh, they still have the memory of the shopping mall. That's why they all returned here. Their patterns are ingrained in them for something. So just, I thought it was really interesting in this one, how it was a choice that was made. And you think, oh, that is a choice that had to be made. Where once they're all at the pool and they like push them into the pool So they all start kind of getting in the pool too, but they aren't just all jumping in with their clothes on. They sort of like you see people like disrobing partly.
Yeah.
So it's like you have someone dressed down to just their shorts. A woman takes off just their shirt. It's like they're undressing to an extent and getting in. And it just brings up those questions where it's like, well, why are they undressing at all? And it's just sort of, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's interesting to see. So how is this infection actually affecting him? And then at the end, we know they can drive cars just fine. And like, they know,
That's right.
they know how to like, make themselves up to appear completely just sort of put together and have a nice haircut. It's
there's
interesting.
definitely a conceit that like, even when they're infected or the parasite's in them, they can still function. Like they're not mindless.
Yeah.
They're just compelled, and that's a different kind of thing. Cause like the doctor's girlfriend has a whole monologue about a dream she had, and she's infected. Like she's already like, in her thing, but she's having a fucking conversation.
So it really is like, you are you, except for just these instincts and urges are isolated.
It does feel to me a little bit like the parasite is choosing when to kind of push you to like go after somebody. You know what I mean? That it's not always, it's not a 1-to-1 like all the time you're just like going for it. It's more like circumstantially, if you see somebody who's not infected, well, even when they are, because remember, who is it who goes, somebody comes into the room, fuck, I can't remember, but, there's a couple toward the end, like not old, not young, sort of middle-aged couple, and they've come out and they're like, what the fuck is going on? Like they talk to the weird concierge guy.
Yeah.
And he brings them to a room, and in the room is a bunch of infected people just feeling each other up, right? They're not going after anything. They're just feeling their eroticism or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when these two come in, they all turn in to go, oh, I want that. So there's some aspect of the like rules of this parasite that's like, they're just feeling sexy all the time. But then when they see somebody who's not infected, they're like, gotta get them. So whatever that means.
Gotta get up. And they do. Oh, that was fun when they're in the storage room downstairs with all the wood slats. And that's just a fun as a zombie attack scene.
Yeah, that's right. The storage like lockers. Yeah.
Fun visuals like that. Are just,
Definitely.
as far as zombie moments. And you met, that guy, Nick, when you said, how about that guy's face?
Woo.
We got to talk about the casting in this.
Yeah.
I think it's great. And it's
really good.
And it's in that Cronenberg way too, where it's like people are just kind of
fucking weird.
Yeah, interesting faces.
Yep.
Like, okay, so who's the main our pickle eating buddy on the phone? At a certain point during the movie, we keep going to this guy,
Joe Silver, I think.
Yeah,
is
Joe
that
Silver
guy, right?
as Rollo Linsky. Rollo. So
Great.
at a certain point, I turned to Tim. I'm like, this whole time has he just been having pickles and coffee? And you're like, yeah.
He has. Fucking
was just
gross. Some people really like pickles.
I like them, I admit, but like not
Do you like dill pickles or sweet pickles?
both. I like pickled things. I like fermented things.
Almost a little
but
bit.
not like not with coffee and like just like going at a big pickle. Like I like it how they serve, at a deli you have it kind of with a sandwich to kind of reset your palate, and this is an extra vegetable. But this guy Joe Silver was another one.
Vegetable?
Yeah.
What? That is so weird to me. I know it is a vegetable, but God, it doesn't
They're
seem
pickled,
like one.
they're cucumbers.
Yeah.
But so then Rollo, Joe Silver, this deep voice, like distinct glasses, like pickle eaten, just again, that's like what's one of the best things about this film was just sort of picking up on the Cronenberg moments and in the casting and how that guy just somehow fit the bill. Like, I don't know what it is about these people. Like the neckbeard guy.
They are characters.
Yeah.
Right? Like, just in and of themselves.
Yeah.
They're just fucking weird characters.
I love that. That's my favorite kind of
I do
casting. Just my favorite guy. I'm like, I was all about this guy. The manager with the little effete mustache.
Yeah, I don't like him.
but
I mean, I like him, but I don't like him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't like him as
he's
a
very
person.
unsettling to look at.
He just was cracking me up. I just couldn't get over him.
Oh man. Even the door, like the security guard,
Yeah.
like super odd looking.
Looked like Paul Williams or Elton John, kind of.
Yeah. Or what's the dude who played the Clockwork Orange fucking lead guy?
Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah, Malcolm McDowell, like young Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah.
He had a little vibe of that. Yeah. Weird.
I just wish I don't know what it is. I just wish I could just try to describe it better, like what that is about his casting that I love. And I can't think of anything more aside from just they're interesting faces. They're kind of odd.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, is there something else you can kind of identify about them? I wonder what they're like as real humans. Like, because part of me thinks that those probably are just who they are. You know what I mean? They're not, there's no affectation. That Cronenberg's just like, yeah, that guy.
Yeah.
Get him.
I guess
Put him in here. Or the casting director is doing that. So all the women too, like, I think we had said this too. It's like, it's an era that's really like, just, I don't know. I like the 70s aesthetic era, like women, like style and sort of the
haircut.
Yeah, exactly. It's all, for some reason, I mean, I was alive in the 70s for about a year, but yeah, it's interesting that has weird appeal and nostalgia for some reason.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
It's our parents.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
And also just like all the pop culture I love.
But the women, all the women are pretty fucking interesting. Mm-hmm. Like nobody's like, and same with the men. Like there's no sort of typical, what do you call this? Like ingenue or like leading man. Like even the lead doctor guy, he's sort of he's an odd dude.
Yeah.
He's not quite like right down the middle. So I like all of that. It's cool.
Yeah, and then it's funny then when we get to his other films and just being like, okay, it's something about seeing who these offbeat male directors cast as their leading men, and like what were we talking about? Like how we were talking about The Stuff again.
Yeah.
Like this guy is Larry Cohen's view of like version of a leading man. And fucking James Woods is like David Cronenberg's like,
Oh my God, James Woods.
It's fun to like, I mean, when they push that metaphor of like it being an STD, the disease, to like showing, oh, it's actually that, like the way where it comes down to they basically make out with each other. Mm-hmm. And like we see then the throat lump.
Oh man, so good.
But there's just something fun to think in terms of like, you know, STDs, we almost think about them as they aren't like physical, like
they're like an invisible affliction.
It's like an invisible thing that makes this appear this way. But when it comes down to it, it's like they said, it's an actual thing in itself going from one host to another.
Yeah.
And then just so to have it be at a not microscopic scale and transferred in this.
Right. Stop. I don't want to see it.
Keep holding up the lamprey. When it's like this, Tim, is the STD.
No. But that's just it. I think that to me is one of the most appealing aspects of any of this sort of body horror, and why I love Cronenberg, because he kind of, this is a pretty consistent thing in a lot of his, not a lot, but like a fair amount of his movies, where there's sort of like, it's sort of taking the invisible afflictions of the world and magnifying them into a physical thing, like bigger physical thing. Like The Fly is sort of doing this like body fall apart stuff. It's like right in your face.
Yeah.
You know, and like we are all like that literally is happening to us all the time to a certain degree, right? Our hair falls out, we trim our nails, like our skin cells fall off, all that shit. But when you magnify in, and well, it's actually the opposite, Mag. You enlarge the microscopic world. It's super fucked up. Like, it's just,
we can say there it is, that
right.
worm just formed a lump in her throat.
Love that shit.
Right?
Like that kind of body horror is so fucked up because it like it really gets under your skin. No pun intended.
Right.
Whatever. But like, you know, it gets to you or me or
And
whatever.
then just tying into exactly that, like, well, what's the aspect of me that though wants this? Because the way it's receiving is sexual. It's like,
right.
I'm to an extent allowing this. Sorry, I did not. This sounds tricky as
Yeah, it can be.
I was saying allowing myself to get STDs, but no, but I'm just thinking on a very visceral sense
Right.
of like when she lays that kiss on him at the end, and you just see him kind of.
He's like, okay, I don't
Yep.
have a choice. Yeah. Well, and also the idea of your partner or the people that you are attracted to being the ones who are coming after you and passing on the affliction is a creepy, weird thing. It's the same.
Like,
it's why I say this movie's got some pretty fucking rapey stuff in it. It's like, even that, let me be very careful about how I put this to not like
It has to do with
misconstrue,
giving
but
your
like
trust over. And
that's
all
right.
that.
Like there is both a fine line and a not so fine line between intimacy and rape, right? Like the not fine line is the fact that they're both quote sort of in the realm of sex, even though rape is not sex. Whatever. You like, let's not get too fucking bogged down. But you know, they are so critically different things, but they are couched in the same sort of realm,
Right.
I guess.
Like,
and that's a fucking, it's a dodgy thing to fucking play around with, because
it made me
and
really
it makes you uncomfortable.
That scene made me really uncomfortable of the our main dude Nick when he's right before he expels that we see the parasite coming from his mouth, and it's his girlfriend, wife, whoever.
Oh my god, yes.
It's his wife Janine, and where he's just like, make love to me, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, like using language that's usually like positive language, like make love to me, as opposed to like, you know, let's fuck or whatever, like something more crude or whatever, is so, it's such a fucking like weird, unpleasant nuance to use that kind of positive language with the totally not okay behavior.
there was a really nice moment I liked in there, though, that kind of ended with where she's like, oh, well, I just want to be able to see you. Let me put my contacts in.
Right.
And then the look on his face was just, again, like you finding these specific moments that can only exist in this story and making it happen of like, oh God, what is his face even doing? That's why it's so good. It's like she finally found a way where it's like to trick the intelligence of this creature or whatever the combination of the parasite and him it still is, of like just her saying no wasn't working. He was still coming at her, but coming up with some, let me just, okay, but let me get away for a minute. He then actually lets her go. That just sort of like, you can see some kind of internal struggle still happening on his face. It's just a weird, I don't know, a moment.
Well,
I don't know.
it makes me kind of realize maybe a better, more clear way of putting this, or like honing in on this, is in a way the whole movie is a commentary on what consent is. Because like, and people taking advantage of that. Because like the doctor who has manipulated this 12-year-old for his own weird experimental purposes, like that's like an example of like, she didn't fucking consent to that, but like he's taking advantage of this like young person. And like every sort of aggressive sexual advance is just sort of an example of people not giving their fucking consent to a thing that like, that's why it gets blurry, is because it's like, yes, it's about sex, but it's about the worst version of that. It's the non-consensual version of that. And like, I think it's so fucking weird and ironic that like one of the reviews I read, the guy was like, this is just a fucking, it's just, you know, it's just about sex and people being sexy and it's gross and it's bad. And it's like, that's not, you're getting the wrong, you're taking away the wrong thing. Like it's saying that, like what you're saying, the movie is saying.
Yeah.
Your complaint is what the movie is talking about. So you dumb fuck, like it's, you missed the point.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really fucking upsetting construct to dive into, and important in a lot of ways, and to fucking have commentary on things like consent.
Yeah.
Especially in like this sort of male, driven world where people are just like, yeah, I'll just do whatever the fuck I want. It's like, no,
Right.
no. This is what it looks like when you let that go.
I wonder how that works under the context of, again, like a luxury apartment where...
Well, I think I think the luxury apartment thing is sort of representative of like that way of looking at the world, where it's like the outward appearance, the sort of maleness of that feels kind of like Mad Men, where it's like within the walls, it's all the trappings of like things are great, and it's like, no, they're fucking bad. Like I'm not articulating this well, but like it feels like a representation of male patriarchy in a way. And it feels sort of like the cliche of like the family that for all the outward appearances has everything and everything's perfect, and inside the walls of that perfect home is a dude beating the shit out of his family because he's a fucking alcoholic and like a bad person or suffering person or whatever, like that sort of, to me, is the starliner, it's this wonderful thing. And meanwhile, inside, horrible shit's happening.
And how good is that from the get-go, where the manager is selling it to this young couple, like, we have this, our swimming pool. And then
you can
juxtaposed to that is the woman getting beaten by this dude.
Because at the end of the day, too, it's sort of just, it's the metaphor of the outside appearance is just, it's just one piece of the thing. And there's horrible shit going on inside, right? Like the outside is not representative of the inside.
Absolutely.
Which I love that
and
shit.
The inside is also representative of the outside. It's a microcosm of the outside.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I liked, I gotta say, this film, it did have enough stuff in it where it just, I don't know, it doesn't make me want to put it totally on like a lower tier stream at all, where like, it's just as far as what a lot of this podcast is trying to capture and then discuss the spirit of when you just are able to watch these fun horror movies with a friend. There's some good stuff. This film wasn't bad in that regard, as far as like the moments of the pickle eating guy and calling that out when we see the what was it? Oh, convenient pile of pliers right here. Like
that is so good to me.
Yeah.
It's such a sort of like the filmmakers being like, yeah, it's fun.
Right. Because it was as if one pliers, whatever you call them, would just kind of be like, oh, well, that's convenient. There are pliers there. But have it be a pile of pliers that's conveniently located. Then it's like, oh, well, it's there because that's where the pile of pliers is.
On the counter next to the sink. Sure.
So, stuff like that. But then also just some moments that just made it fun too.
Oh,
where
dude,
it's just
I have one.
Like those little, is it the kids on leashes?
Yes.
Yes.
That moment is so good. What's the doctor's name? Robert St. Pierre or something like that?
Roger St. Luke.
Great. He's coming down the stairs and turns a corner and sees these two kids on leashes being let out of a doorway, and he nopes the fuck out of there. He just turns right around, and it's just the look on his face is just, not today. See you later. It's not even like, holy shit, what's that? He's just like, nope. Gotta go.
Yeah. It's like, to be watching that was like, I would do the same thing.
I would absolutely just like,
And it's like perfect because we don't have enough time to see who's on the other side of the leashes.
No, they're in darkness. It's like just great. It's so
kids
fucking
crawl
weird.
out on leashes.
Oh, I love that so much.
So moments such as that, it just does make it for like a fun watch with someone else.
The car crash?
Oh yeah.
If somebody wasn't like seriously injured in that, I will be shocked.
But that's a hard stunt to do, to like how to time out a T-bone crash with both cars moving.
Well, they timed it out, and that fucking yellow car was not built to take that fucking crash. That thing fucking accordioned. I was like, shit, somebody just got killed.
Yeah.
It's bad. And like, I'm sure they did. Like, how do you rehearse that?
Right.
They're like, they didn't know how bad it was going to be. Fuck.
Was that the actual actors in there?
I don't know. I'd have to look, but man, it's bad.
Yeah. But great.
Oh yeah. You know what? It makes me think it is the real actors is because the next sort of section of them getting out of the car, they do not look like they're acting. No. They both look fucked up and pissed off. Like Robert St. Luke, whatever his name is like, he's like pushing the windshield out and he looks genuinely like, this was fucked up, David. Like, why are we still fucking rolling? Like this, I'm like, she's hurt. I'm hurt. That was too fast. That whole thing was no good. Fucking windshield is in my way. Are we still rolling?
So,
fuck.
But in the end of a final product, does that make it work for you?
Yes. That's what I say is like the result, like what we're getting from that is like, oh shit, this shit got real.
The last thing I kind of had is for the section what worked was I love the ending is great. It's kind of like, oh, of course, this is going to be the ending. It's just perfect.
Yeah, it's body snatchers-y.
Yeah, that, where it fully goes there, and we have, like, I like the fact that they're kind of coupled up in their cars still. It's like they still are their respective family units, but just all smiles and, like, on a mission heading out to the world to spread their orgiastic way of being crazed. But there's always a hint of kind of dystopia or the apocalypse or like impending or just like just on the cusp in Cronenberg films, and I think it's fun to see that exist here. It was really cool.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I love when you pop out. What I mean by that is like you've been living in this little world of the movie, and then you pop out to the world, the bigger world.
Exactly.
I love that. It's such a fun feeling. I have a film that I'm hopefully will be the next one that I do that does that, and it's like such a fun, like the moment you pop out, you go, oh shit.
Yep.
Cool. Like I love that. If you can nail that, oof.
Hear all the cars spilling out, and then we hear the radio of the real world.
Yep.
All right. Anything else you got, Tim? You want to mention?
The bathtub scene is classic.
With the woman in it.
With the woman in it, it's fun. It's not gratuitous in the way you might think it would get. Like I thought they were just gonna be like, oh, they hired this particular actress to be like naked and like whatever, and they don't do that, which is great. They shoot around it. So I think that was more effective because it kind of leaves just enough to the imagination, which is always
which
good.
Made it that much more horrifying because you have this little turd parasite crawling up
toward her crotch, and you know that's imagining that is much more visceral than seeing it.
Oh my god. Yeah. Oh
but oh god, no. Get it out of my face. That thing is so fucking gross. Do you have a name for that?
I think I did at one point. Now I'll call it Roger St. Luke or Rolo.
Rolo. Oh, it looks like a Rolo. Gross.
How about our next section then?
Yeah. Is there anything else?
The casting,
no,
Cronenberg stuff.
That's pretty much it for me.
Funny scenes, scary scenes, how they're zombies.
Yeah. Yeah, we got it all.
All right, then let's do it. What did not work?
It's not ready yet.
Seems to work okay.
No, something important's missing.
What did not work?
For me, actually, really the bigger thing, the kind of just basic thing that never really works, and maybe this is a product of the fucking Rolo's over here moving on his own. Fuck. The lack of sort of narrative protagonist. It makes things it makes movies hard for me to sort of lock into. And what I mean by that is sort of ultimately Roger St. Luke, I get his name right this time, is effectively our protagonist.
Yeah.
But we don't know shit about him. We never get on board with him. He's just sort of there.
Yeah.
He's not making decisions. He's just going along for the ride.
And I mean, it's after we've kind of already had this guy Nick seeming almost like more of a main character.
It seems to me like Nick's wife was gonna be the protagonist. That's where I thought it was going, and she becomes a nothing character.
Well, I was trying to think about,
which is a bummer because she's good.
When does it work in these kinds of films, and when does it not? As far as having these sort of make it an ensemble.
So
thing.
I think what is critically important to if you're moving in the ensemble direction, you have to have you have to get to know everybody or establish everybody's individual character and then have them interact as a group, I think ideally, so that you can kind of get the group ensemble dynamic.
I could even see them where it's just give us enough in that movie sense of kind of like what you said, who they are and what their own. I don't know. Yeah, for me, it was like when you go with this style, which I love, again, as far as the Texas Chainsaw, Last House on the Left, this kind of visceral, like realistic grittiness. It just doesn't, from that kind of movie aesthetically, I don't want the kind of more typical beats of like, oh, this is this family with these and kind of, that kind of like.
No, I guess what I'm saying, what I think is interesting in this construct is when you have people who are very different and don't necessarily know each other, or are not close to each other, being forced into the same sort of place and having to interact.
Right, as it goes on.
You get lots of room for good conflict because one person has a very different worldview than the other.
Right.
And then the internal story of how they're dealing with it becomes another aspect of the broader. We used to have this other
character all of a sudden meet up with the doctor halfway through, and then we see all them. They have to work together. Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and I'm just trying to think of.
I think there's a looseness. You can be loose with that to a certain degree, but it's too segmented for me. Like we see Nick and his wife, we see the doctor and his girlfriend, we see the doctor and the other scientist guy, Rollo.
Yeah. There's all these other neighbors.
It's all too kind of like, broken up into, what do you even call that? These little compartments almost. And even with the overlapping, there's not enough within the overlaps for it to really matter to the story. It's not like pushing it's not, I guess what it is ultimately, I don't feel like the characters are helping to push the other characters forward in the story. It's more just like stuff's just kind of happening, and people are getting picked off, and we're just waiting for the last man standing.
Yeah, we're never as involved as we want to be in any of the people as characters, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, even like Janine, who's Nick's wife, she has a best friend, Bets. And like they have their own singular interactions, but we never see Bets interact with Nick. You know what I mean? There's no sort of crossover. Everybody's kind of like in their own little compartment. And I think that just makes it feel disconnected. Like I'm not connecting with anybody then. And I'm certainly not connecting with the doctor because we don't meet him until fucking like halfway through the movie almost, it feels like.
Yeah. So
it's like, who are we rooting for, or who are we sort of supposed to like get
especially
on board
when
with?
Kind of none of them, it's kind of hard to kind of like and identify with any of them just on face value.
Yeah.
Like, because we are so just in that observational realism style.
I mean, we meet two people right at the top. We meet two outsiders who are coming into this world.
And we think, here's our story.
Why don't we stay with them and see the unfolding of this through their eyes?
Yeah.
Because we're them, right? Like we, the audience, are these two outsiders coming into this world. So like traditionally, that's a pretty common fucking construct to like follow them and their experience. They get, oh, look at this nice, beautiful apartment. Everything's so great. Like, what's that noise down the hall?
It was just used to set up the apartment building.
Right. So yeah, for me, that's sort of, it's a style, but it's like what this movie is its own style, and that's fine. But it just isn't. It's not for me.
No,
ultimately,
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's just sort of like how much you care about.
But I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm a fucking nerd for structure and
usually-
narrative, and like I love that. I want that.
I gotta say, like I'm usually not that way, but it still like affected me the same. Where that is my one everything you're saying. What did not work, but I just sort of translate it as like it just made the whole thing just feel kind of like it's kind of I use this word a lot. This kind of like a slog. Mm-hmm. There's not. You're just kind of waiting for these sort of horror moments punctuating it. Or just any kind of interesting, indelible moments outside of the horror too. But yeah, it just feels like I'm not along for a ride that sort of has that's sort of dynamic or interesting.
I think a part of why it hinders a movie like this that has a bunch of commentary and a bunch of sort of like, satire and sort of thematic commentary and maybe social commentary is that when you don't have the Dana Ripley to kind of be the touchstone of like, this is fucked up. Mm-hmm. And like, we shouldn't be doing it. Like, she gets to comment back at the problems of this world.
Wait, who's the Dana Ripley?
Dana Ripley is in Alien, right? Is
Dana?
That's her name, isn't it? Yes, Sigourney
Ellen.
Weaver. Oh, it's Ellen.
You're combining her name from Ghostbusters.
Oh, yeah.
As Dana Barrett.
You're right. So the Ellen Ripley, sorry.
I was really
wow.
I was like picturing Sigourney.
How confusing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. Oh, that's funny. So yeah, the Ellen Ripley where she gets to comment. I mean, actually, same with Dana. She sort of serves a similar purpose. But anyway, so the Ellen Ripley where she sort of gets to be the one who's like, this, guys, like this worldview and this construct that we're living in is, we can't do it this way. It's fucked up. That's not good. And not having that in this type of movie, actually, I think it just sort of cuts it off at the knees because then we don't have the touchstone that really helps to hammer some of these themes home at the end. Yeah,
it's weird. Like, we don't ever have anyone seeming to be like calling out how strange it is. It only comes down to that immediate human visceral reaction to when a slug comes and gets you and you scream and you're scared. Mm-hmm. Like, it has to be more just kind of reaction outside of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, outside of that kind of stuff, there's nothing that's not really not working for me, because of just the type of movie it is. Yeah. Like it all is sort of like par for this movie. So like I don't really have any complaints outside of that.
Ditto.
Let me think. You got requisite boobies. It was sort of like not at the wrong, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, I thought this, part of me was like, there's going to be just so much 70s boobs. Uh-huh. Like it just felt like this is the movie that they just go, yeah, you got to get
the first time it happened. You're like, here we go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But then it doesn't really carry on. There's a lot of, braless, but that's just a style thing.
Yeah.
So just, I guess I'm kind of saying what worked in a way, like that, we didn't get inundated with the boob gratuity of the 70s that, is always a potential.
Boob gratuity.
Yeah. I hated the fucking chin beard guy. But again, that's not really it's not that it didn't work. It worked.
Fun when he gets attacked and then is the attacker.
Yeah, right. Oh, I guess, so this is the rapiness of it it's a hard thing like to determine if it worked or didn't work.
It's like, well, it made me feel uncomfortable.
I hated it. Like I hate that.
Well, I can say but
it's kind of essential to the movie. So I'm like,
when I say like what worked and I said it really picked up for me with the zombie stuff, I can say that the inverse is kind of true, where like up until they started doing like group attacks and stuff, just like as far as them attacking each other, it just wasn't, I don't know, it just didn't seem to like be doing much for me.
Yeah. You know what, actually, I will say this. Here's something that really didn't work for me. Roger, the doctor, he straight up murders two people in the basement. Like, yeah, they're infected and whatever, and that's bad.
Oh, yeah.
But he could have just run away.
When he punches her.
Oh my God, he punches her in the mouth. Yeah, I didn't like that. I mean, it's I guess appropriate because the thing is coming out of her mouth, but you could also just step away.
Yeah.
No, but like the black janitor dude gets his fucking head caved in. Like he was already unconscious. Like why? You know what I mean? Like it kind of made me go, ooh, I don't know.
What are
Like
you
why
doing?
why the fuck did he just smash? Which in a way makes me wonder if Cronenberg is sort of saying something there too.
Who's the bad guy?
Well, in saying that, like, the overreaction of this doctor is circumstantial to the person that he's, being attacked by.
Yeah.
Like, he wouldn't do that to a white woman. And it almost made me go, ooh, that's actually that's pretty fucking, like, ballsy commentary in a way, potentially. Of, like, the one dude that he fucking feels okay with, like, going over the top and smashing his head in as a black dude. I was like, if that's conscious, it's pretty fucking, like, ballsy.
Yeah.
If it's not, then it's a bad thing. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, yeah, you can smash the black guy's head in because that's the okay person to do.
Oh, God.
And if that's the case, that's really fucking bad.
Yeah.
And not okay and not working for me. So I don't know, but it made me think about it and go, ooh. And then he just shoots another dude in the back. Like, I get it. He's like raping your girlfriend and like, that's fine. But you also could grab him and pull him off.
Right. It looked like he shot her too.
Right. That's dangerous. Don't shoot through somebody and kill your girlfriend.
Yeah, what it is fun though in watching these, just any moment where you just go, whoa, what? Like,
Yeah. So
I was thankful for any moment that made me perk up.
Yeah. But to be honest, like by and large, is that a term?
Large and by.
Large and by. Even the logic of the film kind of holds up. So it usually I'd be like, this doesn't make fucking sense. What the fuck's that? That what, like, in this era and this style of movie, often I find myself going there, and this one you don't really do that. So fucking cool.
Great. Should we move on to things of note?
Yeah.
All right.
There's a bunch.
Things of note.
This should be interesting.
What are all these bunches of things of note you have, Tim?
I mean, the one that I was just I was like head scratching. I was like, that best friend Bets. I was like, I've seen her. She's somebody. I don't know who and I don't know where. So obviously I looked it up. Her name's Barbara Steele, the actress. She's the main girl in Black Sunday.
Okay.
Which is a real fucking, like, fucked up good movie.
Cool.
I think I recommended it once. Mm-hmm. That opening scene. Woo boy. It's fucking good. The multiple titles thing I think is pretty interesting.
Shivers, They Came From Within?
There's The Parasite Murders is also a title they had. They have a French one, but I don't think that counts. Frisons. Which I guess probably means shivers. And then also, well, I guess this is just the shooting title, but originally it was going to be Orgy of the Blood Parasites, which is a pretty fucking sweet title, dude.
I like that one.
Come on.
I mean, it's the most...
on the nose.
Yeah, it's the most accurate.
Yeah. But Shivers, I'm like, well, I don't...
Shivers.
Okay. I like all that. That shit's cool. I mean, obviously, we already said, but I think it's pretty noteworthy that this is his Cronenberg's first feature.
It was interesting to
Pretty
see Ivan Reitman as producer on
Oh,
this.
that's right. Yeah.
Speaking of Ghostbusters and Dana Barrett.
Shit, dog.
He was the producer on this and Rabid. And
okay.
then went on to do his Animal House and other things. But yeah, it's fun to see to think Cronenberg, Reitman as two Canadian budding filmmakers were more than just crossed paths.
I like that. It's cool. There was one other thing that where the fuck is it? Oh, just how panned it got.
Yeah, so the the release, as far as I followed it, was it started with Cronenberg showed a near done version of it to a critic.
Okay.
And then that critic, under a pseudonym, wrote this scathing article about being like, this filth is what your tax dollars are paying for.
Oh, that's
again, it was like
right, yeah.
funded by this Canadian grant money, which usually would just sort of people expect some kind of more overt Canadian, like pro-Canada messaging, I guess, like, or like whatever Canadians like. But this it was definitely a Canadian film and like what he was critiquing as far as that. So I think money well. But then after that initial article, review, whatever you call it, all subsequent reviews kind of were in reference to that controversy. So you had people defending it or opposing it and saying, you know, it's more than just this. So that was the context for which it was released and was very successful.
Yes, I wish I could do the conversion, but 185,000 was the budget. Oh wait, I don't see where. Did you see how much it made?
I heard the number. It was high, relatively.
Cool. Yeah, that's pretty remarkable. Are you talking? So the guy the pseudonym guy, he's the guy who said the most repulsive movie I've ever seen.
I don't know.
That's aggressive. The most repulsive?
But what better way to what better advertising than that, right?
Fuck yeah. Other than that, I mean, I don't really have anything else of, note. Oh, except that this Cronenberg got kicked out of his house or his apartment because of this. Did you see that?
No.
Because of that article, Cronenberg got kicked out of his apartment because the landlord said that Cronenberg, it what do you call that? It defied the morality clause in the lease. And so he fucking kicked him out for this movie. It's so fucked up.
That's incredible.
Come on, guys. It's a movie.
So I had some things of note outside of factoids too, because that's what things of note is for. Things that did not work nor not work. A place to talk about those things.
Right.
I just have, this happened to me again this time, and this is why I said I like how it feels like it's pointed out dystopian, but both times I've watched it now, just that intro, I convince my brain that this takes place in the future or a slight alternate reality.
That's cool. That's fucking so weirdly true about that era.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like what I was saying about the style of the couch, right? They were trying to sort of style future, an idea of future. And I think we, as a result, see that shit as futuristic.
It's exactly like how when you said, or different context, but when you brought up Clockwork Orange, that kind of dystopian future where it's set decked from the 70s, but there's just something in the air in the greater world, it doesn't feel right, so you just think it's kind of this alternate reality. It just was really interesting how my mind kept slipping into wanting to view it that way, but then I kept having to remind myself, wait, no, it's not supposed to be that at all.
Right. I think part of why that happens is because a lot of sets in sci-fi movies in the 70s were just taking interesting modern architecture and putting it in there. So for example, Logan's Run, it's basically a fucking mall, right? But it's a modern mall. And they have modern architecture. There's a do you know what High Lie is? It's a betting sport.
Yeah, that
with the big scoops in the balls.
Yeah. There's
a High Lie arena, if you can call it that, in Connecticut that we would go to every once in a while when I was in college. And the architecture is all that high ceiling, big pillars, lots of angular architecture. And I was I walked in there and I was oh my God, I'm in the future. And it's no, you're not. You're in the 70s fucking architecture.
High-rise 70s
in our brains, because we've been exposed to that architecture in a certain context so much from a certain era.
Yeah.
We identify it as futuristic.
For me, I think
which I think is fucking cool.
That probably definitely is an aspect to it, but I think a big part of it is just that setup of the luxury tower being advertised that way.
Yeah.
It's weird because it's like I live in, like, they're here in downtown LA. It's like they're a real thing. Like, it's not odd, but it's just something about the specificity of like the setting is this tower, and we're setting it up with sort of this voiceover as commentary. It just puts me more in that like Land of the Dead mode, I guess, where just because they don't seem commonplace as a place to set a story, I just kind of take the extra leap to be like, oh, this is a somewhat invented thing, even though it's not at all.
Right. It's a really interesting thing. Soylent Green kind of has that, where it's like you see both. It's interesting.
I just like this. This was a quote from, I was looking at it. It was a film school rejects thing, but they were quoting something else. Sorry, I can't exactly attribute it, but I just liked it and want to hear your reaction to it. It's no accident that the film takes place in the unimpressive confines of Starliner Towers. As Lowenstein notes, the very proliferation of these luxury high-rises was part of a broader trend towards, quote, sterile environments structured by the commodification of the sexual revolution. I said that earlier. The island has its own market, its own butcher, because it's on an island too. That was the other thing that made me feel kind of dystopia. It's like separated, it's weird, it's on the island. The island has its own market, its own butcher, even its own medical clinic. It's not exactly earth-shattering criticism to suggest that the environment functions much like an organism. It's only when the blood is flowing organically that it achieves its highest function.
You know what it makes me realize is Roosevelt Island in Manhattan is very much like this. It's of that era. It's like it was built, I think, to be sort of this self-contained little community, which makes me then realize that what we're kind of pointing or tapping at is the idea of like a
utopia.
Yes, thank you. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so like this utopia idea, which was like kind of a big, there was a lot of people feeling that vibe of like 60s, 70s.
Because it's utopia,
exactly.
Not dystopia. Yeah, utopic vision. That seems immediately future-y.
All these stories that of, it's like a very kind of classic construct of like the attempted utopia, which really just falls into this dystopia. Like the result is this dystopic, whatever place that you get to because you cannot have utopia. Like it doesn't work or whatever.
Well, it's
like,
that's the
idea.
If something's isolated into itself, we think, oh, that's good. We need to be self-sufficient. Look, isn't it great? It has all its own organs as it describes it. Yet you also need that outside connection to everything.
Right.
Like you need
a
larger influence.
Living on an island is a weird experience. Like when I lived on Martha's Vineyard, even for like, you'd be there for the summer, so you're there for 3 months, but you get, it's weird when you're like, oh, I haven't left this. I'm like just been in this place.
Yeah.
And it's not, when you don't feel this when you live inland, right? Because you can go at any time. You're not isolated, even like geographically. So even if you don't go out away from where you are, knowing that you can't when you're on the island without like some effort is a weird, it creates a weird, almost cabin fevery sort of thing that ends up going on with a lot of people. And people go, I have to fucking get onto the mainland for just like a day.
And when it's interesting, it's being pitched as you never have to leave.
Right. Yeah. Which is just, defies the reality. Like, it's never that. Like, you got to get out.
Right. But that's just something that's beyond obvious. That's instinctual, which we don't really have. Like, oh, that's not real. What do you mean? You have the food and the doctor. Why do you need anything else? There's lots of people here. Right. But you're like, no, what about going stir crazy? Well, where's the scientific evidence of stir crazy existing? Like, it's like, no, we just know we need to land. We need to not be on an island, all that.
Cool.
I thought we had to mention Tim because this is so unique, unlike anything ever experienced before. And I just got to know if the world has experienced this too. So Tim and I are watching it. We think he's making his big escape at the end, trying to get out of this community. And we see him but it looks like he's trapped in because there are these massive like 7-foot like hedge with another like 10-foot hedge behind it, and so he's going for it. I'm like, oh, I guess he's just kind of gonna like jump and just kind of work his way through
pull
it,
himself over the first hedge.
Yeah, that's what Tim. Yeah, you said something like that. Instead, the moment when he looks like he should hit it, he just starts shrinking and running up the side of it.
Yeah.
And my brain just went like, what?
It shattered me.
Turns out these are not just how it was lit.
Yeah.
What looked Tim and I were both absolutely assuming were hedges. They were hills.
Yeah. Oh my God. Part of it was that there's a line. There's like a distinct line of like where the first hill kind of levels off.
Yeah.
And then another hill, the hill continues upward from there. But just the illusion that it created visually was so trippy to fucking watch him. He hits the threshold of what we think is the hedge and just keeps running. It was like I'm in a fucking cartoon.
Like
all
an
of a sudden.
Escher painting.
Yes, it was so fucking weird. We should like post a sort of a series of photos of that progression. Yeah, because it is, man. You'll see that first photo and be like, yeah, those are hedges.
Yeah. At least Tim and I both were. So I'm wondering what you all think who've seen it.
Then I love how when he gets to the top and like all of the quote unquote zombie people or whatever infected are coming toward him.
Yeah.
Instead of just like running around them or around the other side of the building and like, I don't know, grabbing a car or something. I guess all the cars are down in the fucking garage and locked, but whatever. He goes back inside. I'm like, that's worse.
Yep. Are you just noting that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think those are all the things we note. I had at least.
Cool.
So, should we move on to RecommenDEADtions and no longer talk about Shivers?
Yes, we should.
Tim doesn't have one ready, does he? So I'll go. Here was mine from last week that I ended up thinking of something else. On Disney Plus, Tim.
Ooh.
I watched and loved the new reimagining of Lady and the Tramp.
Okay.
I recommended it.
Yeah? Why? What's good about it?
It's like I like just movies with animals in them. And it was just like the big scene of their dinner scene. It was just so cute how like the adults like set up this little table for dogs, and anytime like it's like humans going out of their way to like do extra to animals, it just really gets to me. And just stylistically too, like it starts out with these kind of cool like storybook 2D like versions of the town that just is interesting
2D?
and brings you in. Yeah, where it's like this kind of like layered drawn effect. You'll see it when you see it. And then like the casting was just fun. All the voices made them like super endearing. And I liked that it was just kind of like a lot of those old Disney movies. It's just a very like simple story, well told, of like, it's not a lot. It's not confusing. It kind of gets in and gets out and stays on message and on point. All the like supporting dogs were great too.
Nice.
The human actors are good. I don't see what there wasn't to like. We just go in so predisposed to not like these Disney remake things, which granted are for good reason. They can be really weird and off. But this and Pete's Dragon is the other one I'll defend.
Yeah, I kind of want. Like, I don't really think I ever watched the original.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like have context for it.
Anyway, I liked it.
All right, I found something that I watched recently.
That you recommended.
Yeah, for sure. So there's a series now on Netflix called The Movies That Made Us. Have you seen any of it?
Here.
Oh, right, when I was watching it. So it's basically, it's sort of documentaries on the making of movies from mostly the 80s, it seems like. So I watched Die Hard, Dirty Dancing, Home Alone, Ghostbusters are the ones that I don't think I actually saw the Ghostbusters one. I need to watch it. It like started and I left. But it's cool and it's fun. It's like got interviews and such and about like the actual process of how these films got made. And
yeah, they get all the
history
big,
of it.
All the big players, right?
It's really fucking fun. Like the Die Hard one, the first one I watched, is so good because it like goes all the way back to like, hang on, let's explain how even the idea for this movie started, like, you know, in the 60s, because some guy wrote a novel called The Detective, and Frank Sinatra really liked it. I think this is right, but whatever, you'll get the idea. And he got cast in it, and then they made it, and it did well enough to like make a sequel. And so they're like, can you write a second one? And the second one that he wrote that never got made was essentially the beginnings of what became the script for Die Hard.
Cool.
And it's like, I love that shit.
Yeah.
Like learning about where all that, like the gestation of a fucking idea came from is so fun.
That is interesting.
And then they show like, you know, behind the scenes shit from the makings of these, and like talk about the like I had mentioned, I think last week or maybe the week before, about Home Alone and like the budget, like that I learned in this particular show because it was a problem.
Yeah.
You know, so I like all that insider sort of baseball shit. It's fun. So it's a good, I don't know how many episodes there are.
Yeah,
but
it's nice that they delve into that amount of detail.
yeah. So that's mine. It's, what did I say it was called? The movies that made us.
What did you say it was called?
Yeah. So
All
yeah,
right.
it's fun.
Should we decide next week's film?
We should. Is it your turn or my turn?
I think I pulled Shivers.
Did you?
Well, let's see. Who pulled
In the Mouth of Madness?
The Stepfather?
I think I pulled In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah.
Didn't I?
So I was really excited about
Yeah.
you
Okay, so
pulling
it is me.
So then I did Shivers. And now you are pulling
This one. Oh, interesting. Hide and Seek, but not the one we saw. Wait, what did we see?
We didn't see. We saw not
What
a
was
movie
that
called
called?
Hide and Seek. Not the babysitter. Ready or Not.
Oh, okay, yeah. So this is called Hide and Seek. It's a Korean film from 2013.
Oh, okay, the Korean one. Cool.
All right, sweet. Going back to the A horror realm.
Yep.
Cool.
Great.
Get into it.
Have you watched I Saw the Devil yet?
No.
Great. Anyway.
I should have watched that instead of putting on this movie called The Black Room, which I just didn't watch. It was just on, and I was like doing work. And every once in a while, I'd look up and be like, I don't know if this looks good or horrible. So I need to go back. We'll see.
Okay, well, you should join us next week for Hide and Seek.
Yeah, you should.
Korean film. And until then, you can find us at dismemberinghorror.com, where we got an Instagram that's at dismemberinghorror. You can write us dismemberinghorror@gmail.com. You can listen to all 69 of our other episodes wherever you find your podcasts.
Yep. That's true. All of that's true.
Thank you, Tim, for not questioning that.
I would never.
Anything to add?
Send us a message somewhere, like on Instagram or Twitter or Gmail or
leave
where
us
else, or a review or whatever.
Yeah, or
Those are fun.
5 stars.
Does anybody do that?
5
I've
stars on
never done it.
iTunes.
Yeah.
Do it. You listening. Thank you.
That'd be fun.
Please. Do we beg at this point since no one's done it and people are listening? Yes, you.
You could do it right now. Stop driving.
We don't have ads.
over.
So this is the ad
Yeah.
portion where we're
That's right.
advertising ourselves, folk. And even though the episode's over, you probably turned it off already. So let's just wrap it up and say, in closing, thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.